Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. This guy in our first story makes questionable choices. It doesn't even matter to me how crazy his ex is. He enabled all of it. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. My pregnant ex keeps trying to move into my apartment. So I, 21-year-old male, have an ex, Angelica, 20-year-old female. Angelica and I had an on and off relationship since we were about 15, but got serious when COVID hit and I had to move back to my hometown. We got an apartment together and very soon she started spending a lot of time with her cousin. Long story short, she cheated with her cousin, we break up. We've been together up 9 months at this point. For 7 of those months, her phone's been on my phone bill and she owes me over $500. Fine, whatever, I'll never see that $500, and she always makes excuses to pay me back. That's life, my own fault for letting her keep using me as a cash cow. She also took my car when we broke up, and I let her because I was too afraid she'd try to take my apartment too. Anyway, it's 9 months past our breakup, I get a message. Hey, I'm pregnant. I'm on my way home from work, so I don't respond. That's 9 months past being my problem. It's not my baby. She messages me again. My boyfriend, the one she cheated on me with, and I have nowhere to stay. Still, 9 months past my problem. Angelica has never worked a day in her life. She lives off the disability check from her boyfriend and spends it 99% on beer and fast food. She never paid rent and is documented to never pay rent. Anyway, she tells me my name is still on the lease. We're going to move in September. I tell her, your name is not on the lease. It was renewed last month and I took your name off. I'm sorry. She messages me, calling me an a-hole and saying she's moving in because she has nowhere for her baby and 3 dogs to stay. Mind you, my apartment is more like a studio and barely fits me, let alone 2 other people and 3 dogs. I tell her it's not happening. I'm moving out of town soon anyway. Also come pick up her crap that she's left at my apartment for 9 months. She says no, and if I throw it away, she's going to press charges. I tell her it doesn't matter because when I move, I'm throwing it away. She later called my landlord and told him I was planning to move out. I got upset at this and told her I ran the numbers on the car. It's still in my name. Get the car out of my name now or I'm repossessing it, or she can leave me the F alone. She started bawling on a call asking how I could do this to her and her unborn child, and I was condemning her and her child to be homeless. She also still has a gun in my name that I told her to give back or I'm calling the cops. I'm really considering repossessing the car since it was mine from the start and is still in my name. She doesn't deserve to get a free car handed to her. She needs to wake up. She keeps saying she needs a place to stay. I'm ruining her and her baby's life. It's literally my apartment that she's never once paid rent on. I don't know how she thinks she's entitled to just live in my apartment with the guy she cheated on me with and 3 dogs. I hope the baby ends up okay. It's not its fault its mother's a spoiled brat, but I also hope being homeless and careless wakes her the F up. And our second story. Just sell one of your shoes. You don't wear it all the time. A small bit of backstory. I come from a fairly rich family. I don't like to brag with it, but it's commonly known. A few friends of mine borrow money from me from time to time. I don't mind it because they all pay me back on time. So this is where the story starts. A girl, I'll call her Ruby, not her real name, DMs me on Instagram. I've met her a few times at parties we both go to, and she could be seen as a friend of a friend. We've talked a bunch at school and at parties, but I don't know her that well. She DMs me and says she's in desperate need of money. I ask her how much, and she says $40. I say that should be okay if she pays back in 20 days. My money doesn't grow on trees, you know. She says that she can do that. She sends a payment request, and when I'm about to pay it, she says, wait. This is where it gets good. She said she knows I have a lot of money and that I make a bunch reselling shoes and clothing. I tell her, yeah, but most of my revenue goes directly into my savings. She says, okay, that's fine, but I kind of do need 200 euro. I tell her that lending her 40 euros is already a lot since I don't really know her, but she proceeds to say it's nothing for me. Bullcrap. I keep refusing to pay her 200 euros, and to calm her, I say I can maybe borrow her 80. Surprise, surprise, that's not enough. By this time, she canceled the payment request and stopped talking to me. A day later, I get a DM saying she did some math. She said if you sell one of your Yeezys, you can easily pay me 200 euros. I again decline. Then she starts saying she'll expose me for being a vulture B-turd. I'm honestly shocked and ask if she's joking. She gets hysteric and says she's not effing around and I'm getting her in trouble by not lending her money. Now she starts saying I should just pay her 100 euros and it'd be fine. I say no again. She doesn't listen. Now she says I should just give one of my Yeezys to her and she'd sell them. I blocked her on Instagram. And the story isn't over yet. A few weeks later at a party, she told me to effing take off my shoes. Then she started hysterically crying, telling me she got into big trouble because I was not willing to give anything up for her. I reminded her I barely knew her. A friend of hers calmed her down and later told me she was in desperate need of money and she had several debts. Okay, I'll send you $200, but since I know that you aren't going to pay me back, you'll have to earn it. The gutters need to be cleaned, the yard needs to be mowed, and you can power wash the driveway. No? Okay, good luck. And our next story. Demote me and cut my hours? Enjoy losing your 7-figure contract? About 15 years ago, I was working as a security supervisor patrolling the parking lot for a major store chain in Valley, Alabama. My brother calls it the Big Blue Insane Asylum. I'd been with this company about 3 years and got paid decently and didn't have many issues there. My boss was a bit of a jerk, so I'll call him Richard. He ran 2 other sites, one in Auburn, which for those unaware is a major college town, and the other in the neighboring city. My site was a bit of an afterthought, but came with the contract. Also tied in were 3 stores in nearby Columbus, Georgia, and a store in Phoenix City, Alabama. Totaled, the contracts were worth well over 7 figures. Well, Richard loaded the staff with his friends and family, and I was one of maybe 2 that wasn't family, and he really didn't like me, but he had no reason to fire me. I worked there for about a year. The site had issues with vandalism and theft, but with some policies I put in place, we turned it into a fairly safe store. 2 days after Christmas, we got the call we were dreading. My grandmother in New Jersey was dying and only had days to live. I tried calling Richard, but as was usual, he refused to answer my call, so I called the district manager. He told me I had 2 weeks of PTO saved up that I could take as much time as I wanted. I knew the moment he talked to Richard that I'd get a call, but I didn't want to deal with him, so my wife answered. He insisted that I had only 4 days of bereavement leave per company policy, but she told him that the DM already approved me to use PTO. Richard scoffed and said, "We'll see." Fast forward, only my mother, brother, and I could make the trip. My wife's boss advanced her $500 so I could book a plane ticket to return home early and get back to work. Side note, I was working 2 jobs, this and a part-time job at a radio station. I'd only been there about 3 months. More on that later. We made it to see Grandma an hour before she passed away, made the arrangements, sent the DM and Richard the obituary with the time and date of the funeral. The day of the funeral comes, worst day of my life, made even worse by what happened next. The service is done, we're heading to the dinner at the fire department. My entire family were firefighters, even my mother, and I was for 10 years. I turn on my phone and it buzzes with a voicemail. "Hey there, it's Richard. I'm sorry to do this now, but I had to fill your position while you were gone. Unfortunately, you exceeded the 4 days bereavement leave, but I can use you to fill in, so just give me a call when you get home." I was fuming, but thankfully the fire department had an open bar, so I just got wasted. I flew home on New Year's Eve and went straight to the radio station to work. Later, I called the district manager and was told unfortunately his hands were tied because Richard had convinced the operations manager to give him complete control over the sites. Now unleash my revenge. Richard called me in to cover the college store, but only for 4 hours. The gears were turning. See, I'd become good friends with the store manager where I'd worked and found out they were in jeopardy of losing the contract, which was worth millions to the company for leaving the site uncovered due to officers getting caught sleeping, showing up late, and at times leaving after clocking in and only coming back for the last 30 minutes. My wife drops me off and I tell her not to leave, I have a plan. 10 minutes into my 4-hour shift, I park the pickup in the middle of the lot, leave it running, lock all the keys and equipment in the truck, and leave. 3.5 hours later, Richard calls, furious, demanding to know what I was doing. I politely tell him, "Oh, I forgot to tell you. F you. I quit," and hung up. I found out about a week later that during the 3+ hours with nobody covering the site, 2 vehicles were broken into, 1 right in front of the pickup, 1 stolen car, and 3 shoplifters. This was the last straw and not only cost them this contract, but the contract in nearby Columbus, Phoenix City. Extra revenge? A little over a year later, I'm the site chief at a new company and an application comes across my desk with Richard's name on it. I have the captain call him in for an interview. He walks in, I smile the biggest smile, say, "Hi there, Richard, remember me?" The look on his face when he saw me was priceless. He didn't say a word, he just turned and walked out. P.S. The radio station I worked at treated me like gold. Not only did they pay me for the time I was gone, but the owner called me into her office and handed me a check for $600 to cover my plane ticket plus a little extra. It's amazing how a company that you work for only 3 months can treat you better than the one you work for 3 years. Sweet karma when Richard saw you sitting there waiting for him. I'm sure Richard's family didn't appreciate losing their cushy jobs because of cutting your hours. And our last story. HOA Karen prohibits veteran from displaying flag on house. I live in a building that unfortunately falls under the jurisdiction of a homeowners association, HOA. Once while I was mowing my lawn, Karen, the chairperson of my HOA, approached me and said something like this. "Karen, what on earth are you thinking? Hanging a flag on your house? This absurd idea could trigger negative emotions among neighbors, and the whole neighborhood will suffer." Me. "Karen, this flag represents my beliefs and my comrades in arms with whom I fought. It's my way of showing respect to veterans and expressing my commitment." If I'd been clever enough to say this immediately, I would have been clever enough not to buy a house in an HOA. I responded, "I cannot find any rule that prohibits hanging flags near my house, because there is no such rule." "Karen, please don't force me to send you an official complaint from our community." She turned around and walked away briskly. I didn't even have a chance to say anything more. Sometime later, my HOA sent me a letter demanding that I remove the flag from my property. According to them, it's considered racism and might create a negative impression of the neighborhood, potentially lowering property values. This nonsense was basically a direct quote from Karen, along with the threat of a fine if I didn't comply within 24 hours. As I hadn't checked my mailbox for 3 days, I also found a fine notice of about $100. I don't live in the USA. Warning me that I had 24 hours until the next fine. My friend, who's a veteran and now a practicing lawyer, helped me. This issue became personal for him as well. We prepared legal documents to file a lawsuit against the unjust fine, which contradicted the Constitution, along with a lawsuit for emotional distress worth $10,000. My friend met with Karen's lawyer and warned them that this would make local news today, and our veterans organization was supporting us. Karen's lawyer turned pale as a wall. In 4 days, I earned $8,000. I offered my friend's lawyer half of the $10,000, but he refused to take any money. I managed to persuade him to accept $2,000. I also ordered a large 2-meter flag, another flagpole, and a slightly smaller flag with the emblem of our division. I hope Karen will appreciate the sight of my revamped property, which cost her $10,000 plus the lawyer's fees. Just because you survived combat doesn't mean Karen won't bother you. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.